So is there a north-south divide? Well, we're going to talk to two teachers who've both been involved in turning around failing schools into successful academies in the Midlands and the south of England. With us here in the studio is Kishore Vyas from the Northwood Academy in northwest London, and Leon Hady is head of the Stone Soup Academy in Nottingham. Thanks very much to both of you. Leon, you first. I mean, do you think there is a divide, a north-south divide?
I don't think it's necessarily a divide. I think it's more a case of we focused on London for quite a period of time, and obviously that's improved. London's HC pass rate a decade and a half ago was 16%, now it's up to 70%, and now when we focus on other parts of the country, now that London is working to a point, hopefully that will improve as well.
Do you think we maybe focused on London too much?
No, I think for the capital and it being a flagship that it is, we needed to improve it to be one of the best places in the country, and now the rest of the country can learn lessons from there and adapt according to different regions.
And Kishore, what's your experience? What do you think? Do you think there is a divide at all?
Yeah, I heard the news this morning, and the first kind of thing that came into my head was what kind of funding, what kind of recruitment issues are there, what are the parental aspirations, if there are any differences. You know, these are very key sort of aspects of school improvement. Leon was talking about London being focused, and you know, back in 2003, I think it was, there was the London Challenge that went on for 8 years. That was a big focus on London, and I know there were some offshoots from that with the city challenges that came about, but I haven't heard yet of a Liverpool challenge or a Bradford challenge yet. So, as Leon's saying, maybe that's going to sort of spread across the country. So
maybe more focus, as there was in London, on northern cities. Would you like to see that?
Certainly, yeah. There was a big focus, and it was very successful, and it probably needs to be more sort of homogenous across the country.
Okay, Leo, so what do you think would need to be done outside London, perhaps, to improve standards?
Well, there's no magic pill. There's quite a range of things that need to be done. But I'd say firstly teacher retention and inviting people from different backgrounds to come into teaching, and for it not to be so expensive to join teaching. Things like Teach First have been very positive. Things like the school centre training, things like the GTP, which I did, where you can be paid as you train. So it invites you to come from other careers.
Are teachers, young teachers, keener to get jobs in London and the south than they are in the north? Is that one issue?
I do think that is an issue. I know I've lost two teachers recently who were excellent, and they would have made really good teachers, but they wanted a life and a period and a time in London, which is, of course, they're well within their rights.
And Kishore, do you think that's true? Is there a question of supply and demand in terms of teachers?
Well, I was speaking to a colleague just earlier. He's from Liverpool. He's a math teacher, and he came down, and his primary reason was, one, he wanted the bigger city life, but the second thing was he was having difficulty with getting a job. But he was very young, very dynamic. He's become a head of department in a very short amount of time. And it's London's gain, I guess, and Liverpool's loss in a way.
Is it also a question of resources, though? Perhaps some sort of positive discrimination in terms of financial resources into schools in the north, if they are falling behind?
Yeah, I think the resourcing is absolute key, and I think that's been one of the factors of why things have improved so much in London. You know, without resources, without professional development for teachers, without strong recruitment, it's going to be very difficult.
You've helped turn around a school, though, without huge amounts of money. Just tell us how you do that, very briefly.
Well, I think it was a school that was going through trouble. There was a big turnover of the leadership group, and the first thing to do was to stabilise that, and that's what we did. We dealt with the behaviour. And then there was a massive focus on teaching and learning, but luckily we had the parental aspiration was quite high, and that's a very big barrier that's either very strongly against you or it can be very strongly with you.
What about your experience, Leon, on that? Do you need financial resources, extra financial resources, to turn around a failing school?
Financial resources will always give you options, but I think one of the key things that Kishore touched upon there was that he had the buy-in of his leadership team, the teachers, and obviously the parents. That buy-in, that culture that you create within a school is the most important thing. You can take, many a school, has been taken from lower grades to higher grades, lower attainment to higher attainment through that. If you can get everyone on the same page, including, most importantly, the students and the parents.
And is that sometimes an issue then in schools outside London? I mean, is that part of the reason?
I think in pockets of London you find exactly the same kind of low attainment as you would in other parts of the country. London as a whole is doing well, but obviously there are still pockets that need improving. There's been a big culture change from being so heavily reliant on industry in some of the northern cities past. So getting that transition right in a generational sense, children now kind of doing something different or growing up in a different way than their parents did, not having such guaranteed work, etc., and that culture change that comes with that. I think that's a key factor as well. We can't expect education to change in and of itself. It's linked to the society that it's in.
Well, I mean, Kishore, we hear all the time about the South seems to have so many resources. It's where a lot of the better jobs are, or the better paid jobs, and so on. Is it perhaps inevitable that there should be some sort of divide that we're hearing today seems to have emerged?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it could be, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Even within London, if you're working central London or towards the outskirts, you're going to get more money. So unless, I guess, there is a focus on distributing resources more effectively around the schools, I think it's going to be an ongoing problem.
OK, well, good to talk to both of you, Kishore Vyas and Leon Hady. Thank you so much for your time, both of you. Thank you. Now, a jury has been watching CCTV images